So, we're on Tuesday, and it's the 28th of June 2016. We're after Brexit, obviously, and there's a little bit of concern that some racists have started to come out now of the woodwork and have a pop at people who aren't of what might be called white British or whatever extraction. This is not the only kind of time when this happens. But this morning on BBC Radio 4 Today programme, there was this nice little piece by a lady called Katechi. I forget her first name, I apologise. But Katechi, surname of a girl, a female correspondent for the BBC. She went back to her hometown of Basingstoke, where she was talking to her father and seeing photographs from the old days and stuff, and trying to show why Basingstoke voted so hard. Well, it didn't vote so hard. It was, I think, it came out typical of the country, like 52-ish% for leave and 48-ish% for remain. But it's got some hard line in that, which there's extremes that aren't shown up by that result. And so our old man was saying, "Oh, we're more cosmopolitan now. There were hardly any immigrants back in those days, and hardly any people of colour and foreign people." I said, now 11% of Basingstoke population is now some kind of immigration source. Anyway, she goes into this pub, Ms. Katechi, and perfectly polite to people and say, she obviously picked the wrong pub, or the right pub, I should say, in some ways, if you want to find out what's going on. But it's not. I wouldn't have thought that was a typical pub. I would have thought that was just one kind of locale. And it depends what time of day you go in and what kind of people you get. What kind of people now do you get in a pub in the middle of the day? And I get a feeling that's roughly when she went. I don't know. But she's one guy basically she was talking to, and he rolled out all this chatter, and in among it, he rolled out the P word, which I'll say just once so we're clear on what it is. And I haven't used this word since I was about, well, it's over 40 years I think since I used this word. I'm 53. And he just rolled out a load of words, and he said packy in the middle, and he just carried on talking. So it's obviously normal, staple vocabulary for this guy. To me, the P word doesn't sound particularly offensive, but I'm not a Muslim. So if it's offensive to Muslims, and given that it makes no difference to me what words I use, I would choose not to use the P word, unless you want to start a fight. And if you're that kind of person, you'll use anything to try and start the fight. So there's no point in me talking about that sort of person's point of view, because that is not the kind of person that I am. And if you want to start a fight, you grab at anything to start a fight with. So this guy just chucked out the P word, and she said, "Sorry," she said, "did you just call me a..." And the guy obviously did. He said, "Oh, love, it's more or less," he said, "it's nothing personal," though he didn't use that phrase. And it went kind of like that. And I thought, God, that's a bit shit. To go back to your hometown and your old man says it's a bit more cosmopolitan, and you think, yeah, things have moved on, and then they really haven't. In some quarters of Basingstoke, they obviously haven't at all. But I think those quarters are smaller than quarters. I think that's like a 96th. I happen to know for some strange reason that's, divisible by 4. Yeah, in some little nooks and crannies, yeah, it hasn't changed, but that's not how most people think. Now, moving on from that, Baroness Warsi the other day was on TV, and she was saying, she's from Bradford, which is just up the road, up the shortest motorway in the world, or in Britain anyway. And she was saying how somebody had been accosting people, Muslims, and saying, "We voted leave, it's time for you to leave." And I mean, that's the sort of line that, thick racist people think is really cool. It's taken them ages to think of it. So determined to deliver it to somebody. And so, to be fair to Baroness Warsi, she just pointed out what I am quite sure has happened. but it may not be that common. So don't think just because Baroness Warsi on TV says it happens all the time, but it will happen. I've no doubt about that the opportunist prejudices will come out as they crawl out from under their rock for a while, the kind of closet racists. All I can advise is carry your mobile phone and switch it to record when they're talking. They'll shut up if you start recording video, so don't do that. Just make sure you've got a recording device on you can record audio, and then maybe get a picture of them as they go away. And if there's any trouble or you think you're in danger, you move to a public place and you will be safer there. So one thing racist and prejudiced people don't like is being outed. So if you out them on social media, it's quite uncomfortable for them. So you'll probably find they crawl under a rock after that. Until the next, extremist meeting that they have. So that was that. Now, just to show that this is not a one-sided, and the polls, of course, they've been on pointing out that some of their centres have had daubings of "Get out, you Polish scum," or whatever it is people want to write. I have to declare an interest because my uncle was Polish by marriage. My auntie married a man who was a Polish merchant seaman, and I don't know if he was a merchant sailor in the war, but obviously he was a sailor in that time. So frankly, it doesn't matter whether you're in the military navy or in the merchant shipping. Merchant shipping was actually more danger because of submarine action. But Leo was a great bloke, and I had a lot of time for Uncle Leo. Now the new generation of Poles probably don't even remember the war very much. And indeed some of them have taken on a bit of a Nazi attitude. But I dare say most of the people that come over here aren't like that. So I've got nothing against the Poles. So people that are doing that, they're similarly prejudiced idiots, daubing things on the Polish centre wall or whatever. And they can only be glad that there's not a bunch of young Poles there. Obviously they'll pick a moment when the Polish guys aren't around. Because they get a good doing. So I was, just to balance all this up to show that the extremists on all sides are coming out, I was selling a motorcycle, and it was an Auto Trader. And if you don't know how Auto Trader works, there's a number given that people ring. They don't get your number that you as the advertiser have declared. They use a proxy system. So somebody gets a number to ring for that advert. They ring up about that car or that motorcycle, that caravan or whatever, and they get your private number that you put in, but there's a wall between it. So the number that they get isn't your number, but when they ring the number they're given, it gets through to your number. Yeah, there's a kind of zigzag through. It's a proxy system. It's mapped onto your number by their switchboard system. Okay, so 2 a.m. Right? So this isn't somebody friendly who's going to be calling. This is either an emergency or it's a dick who's probably drunk. So 2 a.m, we're asleep in bed and the phone goes to landline, because I think that's the number I must have given. Is it a landline? No, it's not, because it's my personal phone. So somebody's ringing. Remember, they don't know my actual number, but they can get through to me at any time of the day. Now, Auto Trader, maybe this is something that you should allow people to do, to cut off times, like between 7 at night and 7 in the morning. Maybe people can't ring, or whatever it is people want to set up. That would be good, because that'll stop this happening. So this dick obviously knew that he could ring any time of day. He knew that one thing he could do is disturb me, and I think he knew me from social media, or maybe the small television appearance I've had a long time ago, or in the media, the newspapers I was in again a long time ago. But he figured who I was in relation to other things, and so he called me up. He talked about the motorcycle for about 1 minute maybe, and he made an offer for it that was significantly lower than I was asking, and wasn't what I would call a serious offer. It took him that 1 minute to get round to the real agenda, which was this. This is me lying in bed at 2 a.m. in the morning. The guy sounded of foreign extraction. I'd make a guess. I think he was Muslim. And he starts, you not from here? Where you from? And before I can answer, he says, you foreigner, you not from round here? I said, right. I said, are you making an offer for the bike? I said, because that's not what it sounds like anymore. You foreigner, you not from round here, where you from? Okay? So I would just say to Baroness Warsi and everybody else, just don't press these buttons too much, because people are going to start thinking that you're bringing out an extreme tiny fraction of incidents and making them sound as though they're really, really common. And I wasn't going to mention that incident, but I mention it now. There's incidents all over. You know, I could bring up Rotherham. You know, that's solely Muslims against white schoolgirls. Gangs of Muslim men raping white schoolgirls. Okay? Against that, does a few catcalls in the street amount to jack? Okay, so I understand that you want to point these things out. Just be careful, because you tend not to address the disgusting, horrible things directly, and you tend to blow up people like Baroness Warsi I'm talking about, things that are relatively small. I haven't heard Baroness Warsi speak once about the Muslim gangs in Rotherham and elsewhere in this country. I think Oxford was another place, Oxfordshire. I've not heard her speak about those once, raping white schoolgirls. So Baroness Warsi, let's hear a discussion about that from you, please. Thanks for watching and listening.